Hello, you beautiful people. OpenDarkwing here, and welcome back to Mechanical Mastery. As you can see, we've been a little busy. I meant to come back to this thing last night after the Super Bowl, and I kind of left it running, and I forgot about it till this morning. So we have a little bit of EMC that's been kind of churned up. As you can see, we have completely redid our little stacks here and kind of compacted them a little bit. I am restricting the input into here, and then it just kind of logs up on keeping the aluminum and the iron in mind. And the only one that we really get backed up on, as you can see, because of how slow it goes compared to the others, or how fast it goes compared to the others, is the multi-servo press, you know, anything with the copper. But that has been able to produce out here, and then as fast as it produces, it kicks out on this one. I do have an augment in here so that it's not too terrible of a wait between them. I still think it's running a little bit faster than we can produce, but not much faster. I did create a magma crucible here, which is pulling in netherrack to create lava. And then I have these magnetic dynamos, with each has a hardened update to it. And then we've got that going on. We haven't gone any further in the power. We're still just running the one solar panel for the basic stuff set up. But we've expanded our grassy area because we're going to be getting into create, as well as a little bit of immersive engineering. As you can see, we've got some coal coat going on, and we have some steel going on, so that we can kind of jump into what we're doing. The other change I made over here is I ran all three of them to be redstone furnaces instead of the two. That way I wouldn't have a whole lot of extra stuff coming out of it on that front. So that's kind of the updates from the off the camera work that I've done. Not a terrible amount, but enough that we were able to progress this up a little bit. One of the things that I grabbed while I was off and about was I made a handful of this andesite alloy and a bunch of white wool and a whole bunch of sticks. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to, for rotational energy, instead of going the windmills route or going the water wheel route, I think we're going to start off by going the windmill route. And we'll start working on our create stuff out on this side. And then for more passive power, I thought since we're doing windmill for rotational stuff, we could do the immersive engineering generation. We could either do windmills with that, or we could go with the water wheels for the immersive engineering. Because with the creosote oil, we can make treated planks, which we've made some treated planks already. I have them in here. Yeah, I've got some treated planks already in here. Let's go ahead and drop all this stuff off while we're at it. So we can make power that way, and we don't necessarily have to rely on generating through either power for a while or immersive, because I was looking ahead a little bit as well, and the next chapter in the basic mechanism is when we get uranite, and this is what we'll be able to produce out our reactors with power. So going the reactor, holding off on the power until we can go the reactor route might be a good idea, because it's some pretty decent power for relatively low cost. So until then, we might just stick with immersive engineering and see what happens. But let's start getting our stuff set up and created for our create mod and all of that fun stuff. One thing that we did unlock when we unlock it and create was kelp. And that is EMCable, which is nice because we are able to make the belts and all the other stuff we need. But let's get some of this basic stuff, the mixers, the press with the depots. You can use the fans to wash stuff. You can use the fans to heat things up and all that fun stuff. And let's get some windmill bearings. I think we're going to go with the windmill bearing system. It's pretty cheap to get a windmill bearing up and running. So let's do the windmill bearing for rotational power. We'll build ourselves up a windmill, and then we'll start looking into getting power and passively making RF with immersive engineering. And then we can look into finally getting universal cables, logistical transporters, mechanical pipes. These things will be nice because we'll be able to get fluid transfers and all that fun stuff up and running, because the pipe mod for fluid was a little on the expensive side, if I remember correctly. Yep, we need to glowstone dust, and we won't get that for a while. So let's get cracking on some basic stuff for create. I'll build us up a nice little windmill, make it look nice, and then we'll start putting together some of these machines and figuring out how we want to basically run this. I think what I'm going to end up doing is in this corner, I will build a windmill, and we can run our create machines, create machines off this way and in. And then over on this side, I can build up our immersive engineering power stuff over here. So let's get going. I will build up a windmill here. I might build a windmill here to run out this way, and we'll just see how we do. We'll just see how we do on rotational energy and what all we need to do. And here's our wonderful windmill. It is gorgeous. It's not quite a max windmill just yet. I think that requires 2 stacks of the windmill stuff. However, it's pretty good at the moment. If we bounce up to look at it, you can just see it flash up 6144 SU. It's a couple thousand off from the max, but I think for our purposes, this will do pretty well for now. Originally, I was thinking, like I had said, moving it out here. However, I was just looking ahead at what we've got to do, and it's making this regular mechanical essence. And that's going to require eventual mixing of the basic mechanical essence and the bronze rods. Now, we are making these two automatically over here. We've got, we just don't push them to a multi-servo press. We already we're fabricating these. And I am overproducing copper rods, which means we can use this same setup in here to also produce the copper rods for our regular mechanical essences. The only thing we'll have to do is automate steel and Invar to get those 2 gears. Now that's fairly simple to do with the Invar. We can do it with the induction smelter, and we can just get nickel and iron, and we can do those in the ingot format to get the Invar ingots. For the steel, we can multi-servo press steel, obviously, but to get the steel itself, we can also induction smelt this with coke, coal, and iron to get the steel ingots. We could continue to do what we're doing here and using the coke oven and the crude blast furnace and pipe stuff in and out. But I think that as we go along, the space is going to become more and more of an issue, and these 3x3x3 multi-blocks just aren't so good. So what I think we're going to do is, instead of piping these around at the cost of obviously power, which we'll have to address as we go on. We'll get a powerlizer, which will pull in, if we show the uses, we can pull in coal, and it gives us coal coke, some tar that we can figure out what to do with, as well as creosote oil. So we still get our oil, we get our coal coke that we can then push directly into the multi-servo, or not the sequential fabricator. Not the sequential fabricator, I'm sorry. The induction smelter. Pull in the coal coke, we can pull in an iron, it'll run it through, and then we get our steel out. We run that into the multi-servo press with a gear die. It gives us the steel gear, etc., etc. Now, all these things are going to be taking power, but I think if we run that line through, we should be okay. We just need to get some power up and going. This uranite is for the power reactors. So if we look at power, we get these, where are they? Here they are, reactors. Now, these things do end up becoming a little bit expensive to build because you need 36 of them because they build in a 3x3x4 multi-block. But each one of these things gives you 4 of them, so it's not quite as bad, but it still gets a little crazy on how it all builds together. So, but it needs the uranite, and it also needs uranite and redstone, and I believe coal to run these things up. So we're going to need a lot of coal generation going on, which is now where the ore processing is going to start coming into play a lot more. Getting the basalts powder is going to be very important. And all of these things for these catalysts so that we can start, there's the crusher, but we're going to start needing to do a lot of stuff to get, and this is where it's going to be getting more expensive, and those things start coming in because we're going to need a lot of coal coming up very shortly. So what I think I want to do is we're going to finish out this episode by creating these, the regular mechanical essences. We're going to create this stuff up. We are going to set up our create at least for an encased fan so we can get nether quartz, because you wash the soul sand to get nether quartz. You also get some gold nuggets, which is kind of awesome. But we'll set up a washing station for the soul sand so that we can get nether quartz. And we will unlock this, and then next episode we will set up and figure out our entire automation system as well as power. So that will be what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and get started. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to branch off this direction for our standalone project stuff, and then this line down here will be some automation. I should at some point look up how much power you get out of water wheels and windmills from immersive engineering. But I think the eventuality is that getting into, as we get more EMC, and right now we have a ton of EMC because of my snafu of leaving this running overnight. I'm not too worried about pulling out everything that we need for the generators or for the reactors, because the reactors do give out, like, even just the basic reactor gives us 1,000 per tick. Right now, each of these dynamos are generating 80 per tick, versus a basic reactor, which will give us 1,000. And then we'll also get our glowstone, which will get us into building these energizing rods oh, not glowstone, nether quartz, which would give us these energizer rods, and we can start making our energized steel, which is a gold, iron, and a gold through the power orb, which I will show you guys how to use once we get there. And then the jump from basic to there is a double plus. So that's 2,500 FE per tick. Once we get into blazing, it gets a little harder because you need the blazing crystals, which you get from blaze rods. And, well, we have the effigies that are coming up shortly in a sawmill. So who knows? That might be something we can work on. Okay, while we're here, let's just go ahead and, just so that we kind of know what we're doing, let's get our regular mechanical essence built. So we need 2 bronze rods, we need a basic mechanical essence, an Invar gear, and a steel gear. Let's build these up real fast. This way we can, just for the sake of building this thing out, and, you know, just so that we have everything done and we can unlock the next one and figure out what we're doing from there. Also, we're going to start looking into the mechanism cables instead of our regular cables. So the logistical transporters, which is items, the basic ones just require a pipe and steel ingots. So the pretty pipes that we've already built isn't going to be a problem, but I think we can maneuver things around better and filtering better than what we're doing with the pretty pipes. They're awesome and all, but creating all of these modules for everything we need to do, I'm not 100% sure about. So let's get an Invar gear made. Let's get our steel gear. Oh, we have to do it this way. So let's get a gold gear. Can't just build it the other way. We need another gear working die. We need our steel ingots, which we have. Let's get ourselves a steel gear going. Here, we'll build that up real quick. We have our basin and we have a mixer. And I think we're going to have everything we need to vertically start maneuvering this stuff around, and it'll be fine. So we got our steel gear. We got those. I think as I was pulling stuff out, moving stuff around, we should have an abundance, we do, of copper rods. And somewhere we have an abundance of, here they are, basic mechanical essences that I pulled because some recipes are going to require those going forward. Let's get our, I think we got everything we need other than the mixer going in. Here they are, shafts. I knew we had a bunch of shafts somewhere. Let's get a vertical gearbox going. Now, the thing with the wrench and the create mod, and this is kind of cool, if you can break, you know, obviously you can break these with a pick or something along those lines. The other thing you can do, but it just drops on the ground. With the wrench, if you shift and right click with it, it automatically removes anything create-wise and puts it directly into your inventory. So you don't have to go chasing stuff around that flies out. It just automatically does that, which is fairly awesome. Let's get our vertical gearbox put in. That's going to be way too low because this drops there. So we need this at least one. Well, let's figure this out. If we do this and we do that, oh, we're going to need a cogwheel here. which means we're also then going to need another vertical gearbox. So you make the gearboxes and they are horizontal. If you put it in a crafting table, it'll automatically flip it up to this. And we have ourselves now, at current speed, we have this. Now it's going to be very, very slow at the moment. We can solve that in a minute, but to get stuff in and out of here, you can pipe them in, you can push them in that way, or we can throw them in. Does it require heat? Oh, hang on. No heating required. Invar gear, steel gear, basic mechanical essence, and 2 bronze rods should mix. Is it not going fast enough to mix? Invar gear, basic mechanical essence, 2 copper rods. That should have worked. Hang on, give me a minute. Let me figure out what's going on here.
A few moments later.
Okay, now if I look up here, and this is where the create goggles come in handy really, really well. If you look at this, it absolutely says that we are not... it appears this mechanical mixer is not rotating with enough speed. So that's what's going on here. In order to fix that, we have to go through a wonderful... There's 2 ways of doing it. We can either cogwheel our way, and what you can do is you can do things like this that allow you to increase the speeds of things based on cogwheels. So as you can see, if you start here and then big, small, and this now moving quite a bit faster. So if we run this system again, you can see that we are spinning at a pretty decent pace. I can't put it up on that one, can I? We're now rotating at a fairly decent pace. And that's a good thing because we've increased the speed. Now, the other way of doing this is through, where was it? One of these, a rotation speed controller. And these will eventually be awesome to have. However, we need to build precise mechanism before we can do that. And that requires a little multi-step process with deployers. And we'll eventually do this. But for now, to get this thing built, I think we're going to go ahead and build this up. We're going to have to functionally put this together. So let's remove you out. You should be fast enough off of this one. So let's figure this out again. We place down our basin. We put the mechanical mixer in there. We have our cogwheel on here, and we go back to our vertical gearbox here. Now we're running this at 192 SU at current speed. So now our speed should be fast enough to take care of this. Where did my steel gear? Oh, there it is. So now we drop these in here. We go 1, 2, 3, and drop both those in there. Steel gear, Invar gear, basic mechanical essence, and 2 copper rods, right? It doesn't say... Oh, 2 bronze rods, not copper rods. Oh! So we are going to need to create an automated system for bronze. That's what I get for not paying close attention. Do I have bronze? Let's see if we have bronze here. Yeah, I do have bronze. So we'll need to automate bronze, not copper. Way to go, Dave. That's a great way of doing this. All right. Throw those in, throw that in, throw that in, throw that in. Now it mixes up. And then you can click on it to pull out the regular mechanical essence, which... Oh, we need the bronze, one bronze ingot to unlock this. We should have another bronze ingot in here somewhere, right? Constantine bronze. Here it is. There we go. Now the task is complete. That task is complete. We get 16 more of those. That's fine. We have one of these. And then if we go ahead and multi-servo press it in here, we pull out the gearworking die, we throw that in. After a second or two, it will give us out our completed, and we'll unlock the next chapter. And that opens up a world of possibilities for what we can do next. We are going to need... We're absolutely going to need... There we go. Quest complete. And that is our regular mechanical essence done. We get those. We get 16 more of these. Now, these mechanical essences will give us 20,000 each. So it continues that theme going forward. But we also get into our tier 3. And we can collect up those materials in a minute. Let's go over here and unload all of our stuff. And one thing I need to really start paying attention to and looking at is a much better system for holding all this, because our little 4 chests is starting to get a little clogged. And we're going to need to figure out some better inventory management here in a minute. But let's go ahead and throw these in here. Boom. That is wonderful. We have our configurator. We got all this stuff up here. So let's just get all this on the top row so that anything that we unlock from here, expanded thermal, no rewards. So we just build those. We get our flux block, which is obtained from dust. Crafting flux blocks with more expensive alternate recipe. You can get more flux infinitely by throwing redstone dust on top of a flux block by placing a block of obsidian on top and left-clicking it with your hand. Only the obsidian is consumed. So that's how we'll get flux dust here in a minute. We've got tasks to get those. Our osmium, we get raw osmium out, which is nice because that gets us into mechanism. Apatite, which is awesome. We've got glowstone, which we can collect and it's EMCable. And we have uraninite, which is amazing. 2,000 EMC each. Oh, that's expensive. Ah, okay. Now, the most magic thing this mod pack has. All right, so this is, we can craft special effigies when drop instantly summon their respective effigy. So done both manually by right-clicking the item or automatically with a click machine. They may require infusing with some specific liquids before fully awakening to their potential, though. All right. And these require a soul stone, which is built this way, and calcite, which is run with stone and bone meal to make calcite. But this will give us our ability to get these other pieces that we need as we go on for our improved mechanical essences. So we'll learn up all this new stuff. And now that we have that going in our favor, we have a few more options. And I still want to do some calculations to figure out if uraninite for power reactors is going to be a good thing. I think it is. Eventually, I believe in the next one, we're going to be building a fission reactor from mechanism. But for now, in moving forward in this pack, as well as finishing up this pack, I think the power reactors is going to be the way we're going to go for that. So we've completed out, and we've made that. I think what I'm going to do off camera is we're going to start working on figuring out how we want to automate this entire process. We need to get nether quartz, which is simply by bulk washing. I will build up our system for some automating out from this whole thing here. We'll figure out how we want to automate things. I think it'll be all right. And then we will continue on. So yeah, and then we'll automate out this whole process, and we'll finish up our next pack. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Call your mom and dad, tell them you love them. Be nice to your brothers and sisters. And until next time, stay safe.